get rolling then.
All right.
All right. Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 27 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name's Wayne. I'm here with Steve. We're having a belated podcast this week. Steve, how's it going?
It's belated, but it's going. It's going. I'm here doing good, and we're looking forward to it, Wayne. Trade deadline and a lot of stuff, the outdoor game, a lot of stuff to talk about, Wayne.
Yeah, unfortunately, we were delayed this week. Steve had a family emergency. We'll leave it at that. And he had some things to take care of this weekend. So we got delayed a few days, but we're back. We're going to get things caught up this week. It's actually Tuesday the 6th. Tuesday the 6th. And we got to get everything caught up. And this will probably be our only podcast of the week. We won't do one on our normal Thursday, Friday this week since we're doing this one. And we'll just pick things back up next Thursday or Friday whenever we get together to go next time. So we're basically kind of a tweener episode, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, we do have a lot to catch up on, and let's get started because there's a lot of stuff to cover. So first things first, we always have to start with our teams and how they did this past week. And we'll go ahead and get the Carolina Hurricanes out of the way because they've had a rather up and down couple of weeks here. Going way back to the 23rd, they got blown out by Pittsburgh in a game that they were never really in. I watched that game. It was very disappointing to watch. They had been playing pretty well before that and then just completely laid a stinker on home ice no matter. Against Pittsburgh, and it really put things in perspective on how much or how far Carolina still has to go before they can compete with the best teams in the league. And then on the 24th, they played Detroit and lost to them. That was a road game at Detroit. That was a 3-1 game. And then they had to go to Boston after that, and Boston is hot as they'd been playing. They ended up losing a game, but they made a game of it, and they took Boston to overtime in that game. And they showed signs in that game that they were going to turn things around in that game. They did only muster 1 point out of it, so there's that. But they did take Boston to overtime in that one. That was a 4-3 outcome, and then they went to Philly on the way back down to Carolina, and they beat them 4-1 in a pretty good game. I wasn't able to see that game, but I saw highlights of it, and they pretty much took it to Philly the whole game in that one. Put together a real good, strong effort by everybody on the team, and they finally got that win, and that set them back on the right direction because the next game after that was a 3-1 win against New Jersey on the 2nd of March. Again, a very tough team in New Jersey. They've been playing very well. It's a division rival. A team that they're chasing, and they managed to pull out 2 points against them. And then their most recent game was a bit of a setback. They played Winnipeg at home on Sunday, or that was the 4th, and ended up losing that one in regulation. But they did, for the most part, outplay Winnipeg in that game. They outshot them by quite a good margin. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but it was, last time I looked at it, was like 35-25, something in that neighborhood. And they just couldn't beat Hellebuck. Hellebuck was playing a very good game that night. So unfortunately, they came away with no points in that one. And right now, Carolina can't afford too many no-point nights. They got to at least muster 1 point out of at least every game. And they need to string together some 2-point games here because they're falling behind, and they need to get caught up. So that was Carolina's week. Now, do you have all the Rangers scores in front of you?
I do. I got them all, and I can go ahead and go. Wayne, on this. As you know, we still were in the doldrums when we played the Minnesota Wild on the 23rd. That's going way back.
Yep.
11 days ago. That was on Friday night, and that was, I believe, the same night we had a podcast. Is that correct?
Yes, it was shortly after we podcasted that we had that.
We podcasted. We lost that game 4-1. The second start for Alexander Georgiev, he really didn't play well that game. He gave up actually a couple of goals in that game that I felt he could have had. I would say to you, Wayne, that was a game where poor goaltending, cost us that game. If Georgiev had been more sharp in net, I don't know how the outcome would have been. But let it suffice to say, he didn't play well that game. The Rangers lost 4-1 to Minnesota, and really a team you can't afford to lose to. Eric Stahl did score in that game, actually. So they played very well and deserved to win that game. Minnesota deserved to win. Then we go to the game against the Detroit Red Wings, which was an overtime loss on the 25th, which again is reaching back in time. We lost that game 3-2 in overtime, but had several chances to win that game. I felt we should have won that game. I felt the Rangers blew it. Had a chance to beat that team. And Jimmy Howard did make some great plays. We could have won it in overtime as well. But Detroit came out on top. They scored in overtime to win that game. And we picked up a point. But at this point, I think that's the day before the trade deadline. And I think it's fair to say, Wayne, that the New York Rangers, as I've heard it said, have decided to punt this season. They've traded away quite a large chunk of merchandise on their team, and I think they're looking to rebuild. And I don't know the repercussions of all of this in the offseason. I think there may be some more dealings and stuff going, but they have cleared a lot of cap room. And so we'll get into that a little bit more here a little bit later on. But let it suffice to say, I felt like that was a game they should have had. Then they went on this Western Canada road trip, and they played fantastic.
Yep.
I don't know if you followed them, but
I did. I didn't actually watch the games, but I was following their progress, and it's amazing.
Nemestikov came in and seemed to give the team a real boost. Scored a goal. Yep. Against Vancouver. We did go to overtime in that game, but a big win for Henrik Lundqvist, and got him up to 429. And of course, we beat Calgary the next 2 nights later in Calgary, 3-1, which was his 430th career victory. So Henrik is getting up there now in lofty heights in wins. But both those games we played very, very well, and the team looked energized. They looked different. I've heard some things, some scuttlebutt about Ryan McDonough, which we can kind of get into maybe later on. But there's good riddance, I guess, amongst some fans.
Really?
If you listen to some people, that Ryan McDonough was bitter about some things. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But there is a noticeable difference in the team and their play since he is gone. The game against Edmonton on the 3rd, which was Sunday night, I believe.
Yep.
Saturday night. Saturday night. And as you know, I was in Wilmington that night, but I was keeping close tabs on that game. Alexander Georgiev started in that one, and we won that game. His first win, the first time that a Bulgarian-born goalie has won a game in the NHL. And the first time that the Rangers have had a Russian goalie, a goalie from the KHL, come over and win a game.
Yep.
For the club in franchise history. So some meaningful things happened, and I don't think it's possible to playoffs. I really don't. But
no, but they're starting to creep closer.
I think a good finish would be good.
Yep.
And they've got some very tough games coming up here. I think they got 15 or 16 games left, but they're playing a host of very good teams, and they still have a lot of road games left. So we'll see how it goes. That was a promising thing to sweep the West Coast Canada teams. That really was a good thing, and I think the players are high on that right now. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, right now the Rangers are actually only 5 points back of a playoff spot now with only 15, 16 games left. That's actually quite a margin to make up because they have to leapfrog basically everybody but the Islanders. The Islanders are the only team behind them right now, but they're not out of it yet, and there is that outside chance. I don't think it's going to happen because the teams that are on the good side of the playoff line right now are all playing very well. And I'm also including Florida in that group because they've won 8 in a row, something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think Florida is technically in a playoff spot yet, but it's not a matter of if, it's when that's going to happen. I think Florida, as long as they keep playing as well as they have been, are going to make the playoffs, and it's just a matter of time before they get there. But another note on the Rangers too, I've noticed how well Ryan Spooner's been playing for them.
Yeah, he has played well, Wayne.
Yep.
And I've only followed him in a couple of games with my circumstances, but yeah, he scored a goal in the game against.
And a couple of his assists have been very nice, pretty passes too. Now,
scored a goal against. I believe he scored a goal either against Vancouver or Calgary on the road there, which was a very important goal that he scored. Yeah, he's played. He has been a good addition to the team.
Yeah, and I think that in his case, he was just stuck behind so much talent there in Boston that, when you're stuck behind Krejci and Bergeron and now Rick Nash, they traded for each other. But anyway, there was just no room for him to go up. And now with Rangers shedding a lot of their basically their dead weight, I guess, if you want to refer to it as that, they've freed up a lot of roster space, and it's allowing a kid like Ryan Spooner to shine. So,
right,
and he's taken every advantage of it. So, I think the Rangers would do well to let him continue playing the added minutes that he's been able to get with the Rangers that he wasn't able to get with Boston, and I think he'll have a strong finish to his season.
Right.
Now, speaking of Boston, on the other hand, Boston has kind of had an up and down week as well. Of course, the trade deadline kind of always throws in a few little uncertainties in there because the big questions are, will the new players gel with the current players, and is new players learning the system, and you got a little bit of growing pains there. So you got to expect that things aren't going to go totally smoothly when you're a team that's getting ready for the playoffs. But Boston had a game back on the 24th against Toronto that had me pretty livid that night because the game-winning goal that Toronto scored, I personally felt there was goaltender interference there, but apparently the league didn't agree with me, and they allowed the goal that Toronto scored. But I still maintain that Tuukka Rask was interfered with on that game-winning goal that was scored with less than a minute to play. So Boston ended up getting no points in that game because Toronto did score that game late in regulation. And then we move ahead to the 25th, where they went into Buffalo, and again, the second time in a row, they played Buffalo and gotten their butts handed to them. And they lost that game 4-1. So just one of those games that happens every once in a while with Boston, that they just lay an egg. And Buffalo, now to their credit, Buffalo has been beating a lot of good teams lately.
Right.
And so they're I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, they're so far back now, there's no way that they're going to win or win a playoff spot, but they're at least getting some pride points, I guess, if you want to call it that,
right,
down up there in Buffalo. And then the next game on the 27th was the overtime win at Carolina. We already talked about that one. Carolina almost upset them at home there. And then they had to go to Pittsburgh. Actually, it was at home against Pittsburgh, and I watched that game, and that was a fantastic game. It ended up being an 8-4 win, and that game had everything. It was a playoff intense. There was a lot of high scoring, a lot of physical play. Pretty much the physical play started when Hornquist on Pittsburgh went after McAvoy, kind of took a run at him in the first period. And after that, Boston was like, we're not going to take this crap. And they basically took it to Pittsburgh in every way possible, physically and talent-wise on the ice. And one of the highlights for me was the fight with Zdeno Chara and Jamie Oleksiak, defenseman for Pittsburgh. He's 6'7", Chara's 6'9". It was two giants basically fighting. And it kind of was a draw on the fight, but it could have gone otherwise. The fight happened at the very tail end of a penalty kill, Chara was out there for the whole two and a half minutes of the penalty kill, so he was completely gassed when the fight started. So it was one of those that had Oleksiak took him on at the beginning of that shift, the Chara probably would have kicked his butt, but it is what it is,
Yeah.
And then the last game of the week was a 2-1 overtime win against Montreal, and that was a game where Boston dominated the game from start to finish, just couldn't beat Montreal's goalie, and they finally managed to get put together a couple of goals late in the game and pull away with that win. And of course, not Bergeron. Marchand got the game winner in overtime for Boston in that one. So, all in all, kind of an up and down week. But Boston is lucky to be in a spot where they don't have to win every game like some of the teams behind them. So,
right.
All right. So, as far as other notable games that happened over the week, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Stadium Series game that took place Saturday night. I don't know if you had a chance to see that. I know you were away, but
yeah.
But
I saw the goal Ovechkin scored.
Oh yeah,
that's it. That's all I can speak to in that game. Wanted to watch it, Wayne. God, I hate I missed it, but that's the way things went.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. The game itself wasn't all that great. Washington, Toronto just basically laid an egg. They didn't play well at all from start to finish. So Washington won the game going away. But a couple of notes on the game. I was completely amazed at the beginning of the game. They rolled out it had a pretty good pregame ceremony. So, rolling out members of the military and all this stuff. Well, one of the things that they did was to bring the gold medal winning men's curling team, the U.S. Olympic curling team, out. And they had them deliver the ceremonial puck that was to be dropped at center ice. Well, they came out at the end. They were probably set up somewhere in the goal crease or just outside the goal crease, and they basically had the puck attached to one of the curling stones. And they had one of the guys on the curling team basically send the stone down the ice just like he was playing curling or playing the game, whatever you call it. And he slid it right down the ice, and damned if he didn't stop that stone right dead center in the center dot, right in the middle of the ice. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah,
it was amazing to see. I'm like,
I remember the guy, the captain of the team. He is unbelievable, and it's not like I'm a curling expert, Wayne. I've watched probably I can count on two hands the matches I've watched in my life.
Yeah,
did watch them in this Olympics with my wife a few times, and he is tremendous. I cannot remember his name, but he is dead on, man. He lets it go, and I'll be darned, some of the most amazing shots I've ever seen made in that game by that guy. He's really good.
Yeah, he stopped that stone right. I mean, he couldn't have placed that. If he walked that stone out to the dot and placed it down on the ice, he couldn't have put it any more in the middle of that dot than he did by sliding it from 40 feet away. So that was an amazing start to the game. And then, of course, they did the flyover and fireworks and everything else. So that was pretty cool. And then towards the end of the third period, we had a power outage, and all the press, I just can't believe that they don't understand how, I don't know, maybe it's something that I shouldn't know either, but with my experience working at various rinks, I worked at the University of Maine's hockey arena way back in the day. Now they have modern lighting that they can turn on and off at the flick of a switch, but back in those days, they use basically the same light bulbs that these outdoor stadiums use. And when the lights go out in these stadiums, it's a minimum 10 to 15 minute wait before you can turn them back on.
Wow.
Now, they can turn them right back on if they wanted to, but those light bulbs are designed in such a way that they have to cool down completely before they can be turned back on. Otherwise, you'll blow the bulb if you try to turn it back on. And there's safety switches and temperature switches built into the circuitry in these style of lights. So I knew right away when the power went out, I'm like, oh, well, there's a 15-minute delay because they're going to have to wait for the lights to cool down before they can turn back on. But the whole time, the press is like, oh, are they going to get this game going? Oh, my God, look how long it's been, I'm like, relax. It's going to be 15 minutes. They're going to turn back on, and we're going to continue. I just couldn't understand why they couldn't understand how these lights work. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me having stupid knowledge that most people don't have. But it was completely predictable. I knew, when the lights went out, I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to have a 15-minute delay here. But we don't know why the lights went out. Just probably all it takes is just a momentary flicker of the power to turn these lights off, and then they won't come back on for 15 minutes. It's just the way those style of lights work, those stadium style lights. So anyway, but other than that, that stuff, it was a good show. It was I heard a lot of people complaining about the Toronto Maple Leafs uniforms and the Washington Capitals uniforms, how ugly they were, and it is what it is. It's they're gonna sell jerseys no matter what, because they're just different. They're new and they're different. But it was all around an entertaining event for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some headlines, shall we? Well, actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the standings, because we've had some changes since we've last been on. And in the East, as we record this, your three Metropolitan Division leaders right now are Washington with 81, Pittsburgh with 80, Philadelphia with 79. Now, those three teams have bunched up so close now that it could jumble either way. Nobody's a shoo-in for the division in that one. In the Atlantic, Tampa Bay is your leader with 94, Boston with 88, and Toronto with 85. Now, Boston and Toronto appear to be close, but Boston has 5 games in hand on Toronto as we speak right now. So even if they only win 2 of those games, it's still going to open up a 7-point lead with Toronto. So those two teams are not as close as they appear. And right now, the 2 wild cards teams are New Jersey with 74, Columbus with 71, and then on the outside looking in is Florida with 70, Carolina 69, Islanders with 67, Rangers at 66, Detroit at 62, Montreal 61, Ottawa at 56, and Buffalo at 53. So I don't see any changes in terms of who we think is in or out at this point. Definitely Detroit, Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo are out. Rangers, Islanders, Carolina are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And then Florida's making a charge, and they are going to knock out either Columbus or New Jersey, because neither Columbus nor New Jersey is playing particularly hot right now, but Florida is.
They
so
have 3 games in hand, too.
Yeah,
Florida's
and they have
got 3 games in hand.
Yep, they do.
Pretty much the rest of the competition, which is very important.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. I think what's happened in the Metro Division is it's been so dogged and so bunched up and competitive, basically playing playoff hockey this whole year since the start of 2018, since the Winter Classic, that you have fatigue setting in on some of these teams.
That's quite possible. Yeah.
And they just, they can't keep going at this pace. Every single game against interdivision opponent, you're playing a team that's probably a potential playoff team or in the race. And it just catches up to you after a while.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So So yeah, for the longest time we were saying, okay, it's going to be 5 Metric teams and three Atlantic, and then all of a sudden Florida gets hot, and now it's looking like 4 and 4.
Could be, very well could be.
It certainly won't go 5 Atlantic because Detroit's too far back. But
right.
At the very least, it could be 4 and 4, and then if Florida cools off, they could drop back. But they've won 6 in a row now, and they don't show any signs of stopping. I think they're playing again tonight, and then they're playing Tampa Bay tonight. So maybe that streak will be stopped tonight. But tonight will be a good test for Florida to see if they can hang with the big dogs in Tampa Bay.
That's right.
So, and going out west in the Central, you've got Nashville with 93, Winnipeg with 87, Minnesota with 81. In the Pacific, you've got Vegas with 89, San Jose with 79, Anaheim with 78. And then the wild cards right now are Dallas with 80, LA with 77. And on the outside looking in, you have Colorado at 76, St. Louis 75, Calgary 74, Chicago 64, Edmonton 60, Vancouver 59, and Arizona 51. So right now we're looking at 7 teams fighting for 5 playoff spots in the West. That's the way I see it.
And I see the Kings as playing very, very, very good hockey in the last little stretch. They lost their last game, but they're playing very well as of late, playing like the veteran Kings team that we know.
Yep.
They picked up the slack. They jumped St. Louis and Colorado to get back up into the playoffs.
And Colorado's not too far behind them. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. But St. Louis has dropped like a rock. 2-6-2, and that doesn't get any better because they have injuries too, and we'll get to those. But yeah, they're dropping like a rock. So unless they turn things around, I don't see St. Louis getting in. And Calgary hasn't been playing all that great either. Chicago, Edmonton, Vancouver, Arizona, they're definitely out. So, yes, we're saying it's 7 teams fighting for 5 playoff spots, but between Calgary and St. Louis, if one of them doesn't turn around, it's quickly going to become just 6 teams fighting for 5 playoff spots because I see Vegas, Nashville, and Winnipeg is definitely in. Those 3 teams are a step above everybody else. But everybody else, Minnesota, San Jose, Anaheim, Dallas, LA, Colorado, St. Louis, they're all in a tightly packed bunch right now. And there's only room for 5 of 7 in that group.
Right.
So it's getting interesting out there, too, in the West. All right. Let's move on to some injuries. And I've got quite a list of injuries that have happened over the past, 10, 12 days. Actually, no, we got to talk transactions. We got to talk trade deadline.
We better.
Now we're not gonna go over every trade by trade for a couple of reasons. Number one, on the interest of time. Number two, I actually made a video that I put on our YouTube channel. If you go to thehockeynuts.com/YouTube, I made it's almost an hour long, or it's about an hour long, basically detailing every little detail of every trade that happened the last couple days before the trade deadline, or it's certainly since we last recorded a podcast. So if you want my take in particular on all of those trades, and I went over every one of them in that video, go to our Hockey Nuts YouTube channel. You can watch that video, and you'll be able to find it there. But we obviously want to talk about the trades, the big ones and the ones that included our teams. So let's talk about, first of all, let me pull up my trades here. All right, let's start with the Ryan McDonagh trade. That was a big one.
Okay.
Ryan McDonagh and JT Miller goes to Tampa Bay for Vladislav Nemestikov, Libor Hayek, and Brett Howden, and a first-round draft pick in 2018 and a conditional second-round draft pick in 2019. I love this trade for the Rangers. I really do.
I thought it was a great trade.
Yep.
I really did, and I hate to lose Ryan McDonagh, but now here's the thing. Ryan McDonagh is not an offensive defenseman, as we've talked about before on this show. He's not. If he has 35 assists during the year, that's his contribution. He might have 3 goals, 4 goals, and that's been the way he's played. So you got to take that into consideration. JT Miller is really the meat of this trade as far as I would think Tampa Bay is concerned with offensive, because they need offensive help for the playoffs, I think. They really do. But if you look at Tampa Bay's defense line now, their top 6, 3 of them are former Rangers.
Yep.
McDonough, Strawman, and Dan Girardi.
Yep.
3 of their top 6 defensemen are former Rangers. So it's something where Tampa Bay did need the help on the D. They really did. They got McDonough from it, but I think the Rangers cashed in huge with the draft picks.
Yep.
They have 3 first-round picks in 2018 and 2 first-round picks in 2019. They have 5 picks in rounds number 1 and 2 of this coming NHL draft.
And it's supposed to be a deep draft.
And it should be.
They're all saying it's a deep draft, all the experts.
So we did real well.
Yep.
And that's counting the 3 trades, really. The trade of Nick Holden to the Bruins, the trade of Rick Nash to the Bruins.
Yep.
And this trade right here, if you add those all together, we got 5 picks out of it,
yep,
including ours. So that's a very, very, I think, juicy and hard-fought win for the top brass of the Rangers, and we'll see what happens.
Yep. And it's not like Tampa Bay got fleeced either. McDonough's going to be a very good D for them once he's healthy. Miller's going to be a nice depth piece for sure to add on the forward lines. It makes Tampa Bay a much stronger team. And the good thing with this for Tampa Bay is neither one of those guys is going to take off. These aren't rental players.
Right.
One's going to be a restricted free agent, Miller, and the other one, he's got another year or more left on his contract.
Yeah, McDonough's got. I think he's got several years.
He may have several years. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No. I think this trade has been in the works for a long time.
Yep. Yeah, it's possible.
I think it has been in the works. Might have even been over a year.
Yep.
Because I think Tampa Bay has wanted Ryan McDonough for a long time. I don't think this just happened as the Rangers just tossing him out to get cap room. I think that Ryan McDonough has been on the trade blocks with Tampa Bay specifically.
There has been a lot of whispers, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think they finally pulled the trigger on a trade that has been being talked about in the back rooms.
Yep.
And then recently, in the last month, people picked up on it. But
and
I think
with
it's been going on a while.
And with the Rangers, McDonough, because of Shattenkirk leaving, the McDonough was kind of being slotted as your power play quarterback, and he's not that kind of defenseman. He doesn't have to be that guy in Tampa. They have Hedman to be their guy. They have Strawman, who's probably better offensively than McDonough is. So he doesn't have to be that guy. He can be a good stay-at-home guy, and he just he just makes that team that much stronger back on the blue line than they were prior to this trade. Now the not only the draft picks that the Rangers get, but Hayek is pretty highly regarded as a prospect, and so is Howden. So so they got some decent prospects in this deal too.
Yeah.
So all around, there's good points in this trade for both teams here, but for the Rangers, where they're heading in the direction of a minor rebuild, or this may be a major rebuild, depending on how you look at it. There's a lot of nice pieces in it for the Rangers in this one.
Right.
And then Tampa, well, that speaking of Tampa, that 2019 conditional second-round pick, you know what the condition is for that?
Yeah, they have to win the Stanley Cup either this year or next year.
It becomes a first-round pick if Tampa wins the Stanley Cup in either year.
Right.
Yep. So it could be yet another first-round pick if Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup in either of the 2 years. So go Tampa, I guess, is what Rangers fans are saying.
I'll be pulling for them, but if they win, I won't shed. It's not like I'll be shedding tears.
Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about the Evander Kane trade. Evander Kane goes to San Jose for Danny O'Regan. a 2019 conditional second round pick, and a 2019 conditional fourth round pick. And I don't remember, I don't have the conditions in front of me on that one, but obviously the Sharks still think they can compete for a Stanley Cup and have added Evander Kane, and he has contributed almost immediately for them.
Another trade, Wayne, don't you think, has been in the works for a lot longer than we've heard about via the top reporters on the scene? Evander Kane has just had problems in Buffalo, as you know. We don't need to go into detail on him, but he's had trouble with some things that have happened and in his life, and it's not the first time. Maybe he wasn't happy there. It really doesn't matter. I think Buffalo dealt a guy that they knew they weren't going to keep long term, and they really basically got rid of him before the clock ran out.
Well, there was a lot of talk that Kane was going to be traded, just nobody knows to where. And I just pulled up the conditional picks. That 2019 conditional first round pick, basically it's a first round pick if the Sharks re-sign Kane. But if he leaves via free agency this summer, it'll be a second-round pick. And then the other conditional pick is the 2020 conditional fourth-round pick. And Sharks have that option to keep that pick. If they do, Sabres get a third-round pick instead in that trade. So it's a case where Buffalo is just loading up on prospects in that case, and O'Regan is a pretty decent prospect as well, although he's played the bulk of his time in the American League this season, but he's put up some points down there, so who knows what he might do. All right, let's talk about which trade do we want to talk about next. Let's talk about the Thomas Tatar trade. Thomas Tatar goes to Vegas for a 2018 first round, a 2019 second round, and a 2021 third round pick.
Yep.
So that is, at first when I saw that, I'm like, man, that's a lot to give up for Tatar. And I'm still kind of on the fence with that one.
Yeah.
Because Tatar is not exactly the most, he was one of the better players on the Red Wings, but in the grand scheme of things, his top output was 2014-15. He had 56 points in 82 games. That was his best season. So to give up 3 draft picks for a guy who scores between 40 and 55 points seems like a lot. But the reason being is Tatar, the reason being they had to give up so much is he still has 3 more years left in his contract after this year.
Right.
So he has a ways to go left on his contract. It is kind of an expensive one, though. But Vegas, with the way they've done things, they've got plenty of cap space, so they can afford him. So not only does Detroit load up on draft picks, but they get rid of a contract that's been plaguing them,
right?
To some extent, because Tatar is a little, not grossly overpaid, but he's a little bit overpaid, in my opinion, for what he gives his team. So I definitely like this trade for Detroit in the long run. In the short run, Tatar can help the Vegas Golden Knights try to win a Stanley Cup. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got playoff experience, and it should be. But he is inconsistent. When you say, Wayne, he's up and down. Has some great games, and other times he's
invisible.
Invisible on the ice. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, let's see. Other trades. Let's talk about Paul Stastny going to Winnipeg, just briefly. Nice addition for them, but I've read through the grapevine that it kind of pissed off a lot of players in St. Louis, because here they are, their team thinking that they're going to be buyers at the deadline, and then they go turn around and, just like they did with Shattenkirk, going to the Capitals, was it last year? Yeah. Where they sent off Shattenkirk in the midst of a playoff run. They turn around and send Paul Stastny out in the middle of a playoff run. So now, St. Louis got a lot in return for him. A first and a fourth and Eric Foley. So in the long run, St. Louis, it's a good move for them. But it's kind of weird that they would, for the second year in a row, send out a key piece of their team in the middle of a playoff run when they were definitely not out of a playoff contention.
I agree. I agree with you. And Wayne, you know, I don't know. St. Louis in the last few seasons has had a great opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. Not just, and they've lost a lot of talent. They've given up on a lot of talent. And is that the salary cap hitting them? Maybe. But I see it as a team that potentially could have done a lot better than they did. And and giving up players at the trade deadline or losing players for not much in return has hurt them.
Yep. Yeah, and time will tell what they end up doing with those draft picks, if it ends up being a good trade or not for them. Right. All right. Toronto and Montreal made a trade this week. How often do those two teams get together and make a trade? I don't think it happens often.
Yep.
Montreal sends Thomas Plekanec to Toronto along with Kyle Bond, an AHL prospect, for a couple of AHL prospects and Kirby Reichel and Renat Valiev, and a 2018 second-round pick. So Montreal clearly is in the middle of a rebuild, and Montreal fans are not patient enough for a full rebuild, so this is more of a retool, which is why they got AHL prospects in return and not draft picks. Valiev sounds like he can make the lineup next year in Montreal, and Reichel, his career had kind of stalled a little bit. He was a highly touted prospect as well, but he really hasn't done much since turning pro, and maybe the change of scenery will help him there. But those two players plus that second-round pick for Plekanec, because that's essentially what this is. Bond is kind of a minor piece of this trade. And Plekanec has also voiced a possibility that he may be interested in going back to Montreal and in free agency. So if he turns around and goes right back to Montreal, this will be a huge win for them.
Right.
To get these players.
Be stunning to see.
Yep.
He'd be leaving a team that definitely can contend in the coming years for the Stanley Cup, if not this year. I'd be surprised if he did it, but
he's been in Montreal a long time. His roots are there. His family's there. Can't blame the guy for wanting to go back there. He'll be a free agent in a matter of a couple of months, and he can go back there if he wants. So he may, just for the comfort of it, want to go back to Montreal, which if I were a Montreal fan, that would concern me, because you don't want a player to be comfortable. I mean, yes, you want their family life to be comfortable, but you don't want them to be too comfortable, because comfortable breeds complacency, and complacency is not a way, that's not how you're going to succeed in that league. You have to be hungry. You have to be, you have to have that intensity in order to win games in that league. So you don't want any players to be totally happy playing in a city that they're in. You want them to be only happy if they're winning. Carolina's been having that problem for years. They have a lot of players who are happy just being here, happy for being in the warm weather, happy for being in a nice area to raise a family, yada, yada, yada. And you've heard them talk about it many times before, where, the players, quote unquote, accept losing too much in this team, and it's been plaguing them, and they're trying to turn that team around to get to the point where they're not satisfied just simply playing on a team. They need to be only satisfied once they're winning. So that's my only comment about that one. All right, let's talk about the Rick Nash trade. Rick Nash goes to Boston for Ryan Spooner, Ryan Lindgren, Matt Bolesky, a 2018 first-round pick, and a 2019 seventh-round pick. Yep. And man, did the Bruins give up a boatload to get Nash. Here's I think the Rick Nash trade. You may have just heard recently that Rick Nash was told by the team to give up a list of teams where he wanted to be traded to, but I think the Rangers were looking at it all season long as, here's Rick Nash. He's being paid $7.8 million
His contract is up at the end of this year. What are we going to do? Because we're not going to be able to sign him at that. And as a matter of fact, I don't think they would have signed him at $5 million. So what are we going to do? And basically Nash is a rental for Boston, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And so they have to get something for him. And again, I think you'd have to say Jeff Gorton hit a home run on this one.
Yeah.
He not only pulled the trigger on Rick Nash, a guy that he knew he couldn't sign to a big contract again, but he pulled off another first-round pick. I'm thankful for Ryan Spooner. Okay, I think Ryan Spooner is a great deal. Straight up, Rick Nash for Ryan Spooner, no. But the fact that he got that first-round pick is so important.
Yep.
Just a perfect way to do that. So I think more so than the other trade, more so than the Ryan McDonough trade, this was a big trade. And I think Jeff Gorton showed himself as a great negotiator to pull this off.
Yep. And not that the Bruins got fleeced on this deal. A lot of Bruins fans were really pissed off about this deal because looking at pure numbers, Ryan Spooner actually was putting up better numbers than Rick Nash at the time of the trade. But what you don't see is that Ryan Spooner is a guy that lacked finish when he was with Boston, meaning being able to score. He was good passer, good setup guy, not a great finisher.
Right.
Bruins need guys who can finish. It's been a problem that they've had all season long. Yeah, their top line is scoring well. I mean, you've got Bergeron, you've got Pasternak, you've got Marchand, who are filling the pucks or the net with pucks on a nightly basis. But beyond that, it drops off really quickly for Boston. What Rick Nash gives Boston is a guy that they can pair with David Krejci, who's another guy who's a good setup guy.
Right.
That can finish.
Right.
Now, that's debatable. There's a lot of people who say Rick Nash can't finish, he can't score. But if he's paired with the right guy, and it's proven that it's worked so far, because Nash has been paired with Krejci for the most part, and he's been scoring. He's been putting the pucks in the net. So, and if he hasn't been scoring a lot of goals, he's certainly been getting plenty of chances. But it gives Boston a very strong second line.
Right.
When you've got Nash and Krejci, and then David Backes, and you've got some of the younger guys coming up, Jake DeBrusk. I mean, it gives Boston really three strong scoring lines. The addition of Nash, so he will help them in that playoff push. And the way Boston looked at it is like, look, everybody, all the fans in Boston say, oh yeah, but they got a great young team. Why get a rental now? Save those picks and draft picks for the future. Their system is loaded with prospects right now. Boston's are. They've got prospects to spare. So these players that they gave up, even though they gave up a lot for Nash, they've got plenty more in the system right now.
Right.
So in the grand scheme of things, they really didn't give up a whole lot, because what they have in the system coming up through is replaceable. I mean, they've got that kid in Harvard that just, tore up the Olympics that hasn't signed yet. And when he signs, I got to have a place for him. You've got a lot of prospects down in the minor leagues that are top end prospects that they need to clear space to let these guys come up through. Right. And at the same time, the Bruins lineup is filled with guys who are good players now. You've got Bjork, although he's injured, and will probably only come back in the playoffs if then. But you've got Heinen, who's had a good year, DeBrusk, of course, McAvoy. So you got a lot of young prospects there. But the rest of the team is actually pretty old. Krejci's 31, Bergeron's 32, Marchand's 39. Of course, you've got Chara, who's 40, McQuaid, who's 31, Miller's 30, Holden's 30. This is an aging team. It's not the young team that the Bruins fans think they have. Yes, it's a mix of young and old. But with these guys in their early 30s, right now is the time to strike. And this is why they made this deal. They wanted to add a piece. They think this is the year. next year at the very latest. Who knows? Maybe they can get Nash this summer for a nice cap-friendly price.
Right.
Not sure. I'm not sure that'll be possible, but you never know.
Right.
It certainly won't be at the. They won't be able to afford him at the salary he's getting now. But at the same time, the piece is going the other way. Spooner is a good NHL-ready forward, and he's proven that he's pretty good. Ryan Lindgren is a very good young defenseman that they're going to like in New York in about 3 years' time. He's going to be a mainstay on their blue line. Bolesky, well, that's a throw-in. Bruins had to pay extra. In fact, probably one of these pieces that went to the Rangers was compensation in order for the Rangers to take on Bolesky's contract. That's how bad of a contract this is for the Rangers to take on. So Bolesky and one of the pieces that the Rangers get cancel out, in my opinion. And then of course you got the first round pick and the 7th round pick. So all in all, I think it's a good trade for both teams in the grand scheme of things. Nash will help them this year. They've got prospects ready to come up through after this year. And then Spooner and Lindgren and the first round pick will all be good asset pieces for the Rangers going forward.
Agreed.
So, all right. Any other trades you wanted to talk about?
No, that gets the meat of it.
Yeah, those are the biggest ones.
Those are the biggest ones. Yep.
So, and we talked about the Brassard trade on the last podcast. So there's no need to rehash that one. All right, let's move on then. Now we're heading on to injuries, and again, quite a list. And we'll probably keep this pretty brief so that we don't run too much time. First and foremost, Louis Eriksson is going to miss the remainder of the season with a fractured rib. He left late in the third period of a 3-1 win against the Coyotes on Sunday after a hit from Coyotes center Max Domi. He's only got 23 points in 50 games this season and 47 points in 115 games with the Canucks. And he signed a 6-year contract back in 2016. Boy, he's turned out to be quite an anchor for this Vancouver Canucks team.
Yeah, he has not paid any dividends, has he?
No.
That really, God, he really did fall like a stone.
Yep. And there were a lot of Bruins fans who complained when he signed with Vancouver because he left. Boston was his last team, and he left Boston, and fans were complaining. Oh my God, Eriksson left. They got nothing for him. Da 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 da. Well, it turns out he wasn't worth much of anything because 47 points in 115 games is not. Certainly not worth what they're paying him, for sure. So I think you'll be looking to see Eriksson get moved from the Canucks at some point. All right. Patrice Bergeron is going to be out for a little while. He's out indefinitely with a fractured right foot. He was injured blocking a shot during the first period against Toronto back last Saturday, and they said he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. He's got another week to go before he's reevaluated. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as he's back for the playoffs, he can be out the rest of the season. As far as I'm concerned, because they need him in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Josh Anderson is going to be out 4 weeks for the Columbus Blue Jackets because of a sprained knee. The forward was injured in a 5-1 home win against the Capitals on Monday. He was able to finish the game with a plus and was a +1 in 17 minutes, 41 seconds. He's tied with Artemi Panarin on the Blue Jackets lead with 18 goals in 61 games. But he only has 29 points. So good goal scorer for Columbus, not so much in terms of assists. So that'll hurt Columbus because they're fighting for their lives for a playoff run. All right, goaltender Matt Murray is going to be out indefinitely with a concussion. Pittsburgh Penguins coach Mike Sullivan said last Tuesday he was diagnosed, and this is not today, but last Tuesday, after first being evaluated following a practice on Monday in which the goalie left early after taking a puck to the head on a shot by defenseman Ole Mata. So he's hurt by his own guy. Yeah. And Casey DeSmith and Tristan Jarry have been manning the net since he's been out. But I did see a story today that he is back on the ice, so at least at practice. So he should be coming back fairly soon. And Pittsburgh, it's obviously it's been proven that Pittsburgh is in trouble when Matt Murray is hurt. So they don't have that goalie depth that they had last year. That might be their Achilles heel.
That's true.
If there's a way to beat Pittsburgh, it's get Matt Murray injured. Not that you want to do that, but
yeah. Agreed. They're being carried this year by Evgeny Malkin, though. Evgeny Malkin is having
Kessel's having a great year too.
Yeah.
All right, on to Toronto. Maple Leaf center Austin Matthews is expected to be out at least 10 days because of a shoulder injury. Coach Mike Babcock said, as fast as we can get him back and ready to play and healthy, that's what we'll do. Matthews left at 1:06 remaining in the third period of a 4-3 shootout win against the Islanders at Air Canada Center on Thursday. He scored with 3:29 remaining to tie the game 3-3. Matthews led the Maple Leafs with 50 points in 53 games before he was injured. He missed 10 games earlier this season because of injuries, and he sustained an upper body injury back then. It's been an injury-riddled season for Matthews. And I think all Toronto fans would agree with me in saying as long as they get him back for the playoffs, they don't care. He can miss the rest of the season.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's right. Wayne, he could come back and not score a goal, and the team would still – it's not just the fact that he is their best offensive player. It's his presence makes everyone on that team better.
Yeah, that's what the great players do. He's one of those guys.
Matthews sits on the bench for most of the game, but he's in the game. The Maple Leafs will respond.
Yep.
His presence is needed. If he's out for an extended period of time, if he's injured and hurt for an extended period of time, Toronto's going to suffer.
Agreed. And they have. They've been struggling since he went down.
Yep.
They've certainly been struggling. All right, on to another young star or budding young star. Charlie McAvoy is going to miss at least 4 weeks with a sprained MCL in his left knee, the Bruins said earlier today. The rookie defenseman was injured during the first period of the Bruins' 2-1 overtime win against the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday. He left 37 seconds into the game after being hit by Montreal forward Brendan Gallagher. He hobbled off the ice and didn't return. So first shift, that's tough.
Yeah.
Bruins had Brandon Carlo in McAvoy's spot alongside Char at the morning skate today. The other pairs were Torrey Krug, Nick Holden, Kevin Miller, and Matt Grzelcyk. The Bruins also are missing forward Patrice Bergeron and goaltender Tuukka Rask. Bergeron has a fractured right foot. We already talked about that. And Rask has a lower body injury and won't play against the Devils on TD Garden on Tuesday. So it looks like it'll be Hudobin in net tonight, and probably I don't know who they'll call up. One of the goalies from Providence to probably McIntyre will probably end up coming up from Providence. But anyway, to talk about McAvoy again, as long as he's back for the playoffs, I don't care how long he's out.
Yeah.
As long as he's back for game one of the playoffs. One of the strengths that the Bruins have now since the trade deadline and since earlier this season is they have plenty of depth back on D. They have 8 NHL defensemen on their roster right now. And there's a 9th defenseman down in Providence that can play at the NHL level, Paul Posma, that they signed during the offseason over the summer. So the problem that the Bruins had last year and what killed them in the playoffs is they didn't have enough depth at D, and they lost 4 defensemen within a week's time, and it killed them. It pretty much cost them the series against Ottawa.
Right.
And they corrected that this year. Now they're at basically 9 NHL defensemen in their system. Losing McAvoy puts them down to 8. Well, you still only dress 6. So It's just next man up at this point. So I don't think the Bruins will miss a beat. Yeah, it's going to be McAvoy is a fun guy to watch. He's a very offensive, gifted player, and is the future quarterback of the Bruins blue line. But at this point, it's relatively minor injury, and again, as long as he's back for the playoffs, we're good.
Right.
All right. Brock Besser could miss the remainder of the regular season after injuring his back against the Islanders the Vancouver Canucks said on Tuesday. Besser left Rogers Arena on a stretcher and was sent to a hospital after a collision with 27 seconds left in the third period of the Canucks' 4-3 overtime win on Monday. The Canucks said his expected recovery is 4 to 6 weeks. He leads all NHL rookies with 29 goals, had to be helped off the ice after he fell into an open gate at the players' bench after trying to make a hit on Islanders forward Cal Clutterbuck. He appeared to hit his lower back on the edge of the gate just above his left hip. He was down on the ice for several minutes before being helped off. He was not putting any weight on his left leg. The Canucks said he was diagnosed with soft tissue injury and a non-structural, non-displaced fracture of the transverse process in his lower back. He was allowed to go home a few hours after the game. So, yeah, I saw that hit. It looked like it hurt. Basically, he went to hit Clutterbuck. He engaged Clutterbuck. It wasn't Clutterbuck doing anything to him. Although the fans were booing like, Clutterbuck cheap shot at him. It wasn't the case. He engaged Clutterbuck. Clutterbuck was ready for the hit. Brett Besser wasn't ready for him being ready for the hit. And he took the brunt of the hit, and basically Clutterbuck hit him, and he went flying and hit basically just above the hip, like right in the side, lower back, right on the edge of the board, so the gate was open. So very painful to get hit like that.
And Cal Clutterbuck is he's no wimp.
No.
He's a big guy.
No, big, strong player, yeah. So, no fault to Clutterbuck on this one. It was just one of those. If the gate was closed, Besser would have hit the boards, bounced up, and continued playing. But because of the gate being open to the bench, he basically hit that opening and just stopped dead. And immediately he reached for his back and basically tore some muscle tissue in there. So they got to wait for that to heal. Looks like he's done for the year. Vancouver's done anyway, so it's no big loss. As long as he's back for next season and is back 100%, I don't think anyone's going to worry about this one.
You wonder, though, whether he'll win the Calder now after that.
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
that might cost him the Calder.
Yeah, probably Barzal and the Islanders will probably take the Calder at this point because of all this injury, for sure. And Barzal was, quite frankly, probably a little bit ahead of him anyway, but who knows?
Right.
All right. Dallas Stars goalie Ben Bishop is going to miss at least 2 games because of a lower body injury. He left after the first period of a 3-2 overtime loss against the Ottawa Senators on Monday. Stars defenseman Dan Hamwee fell into Bishop midway through the first after getting his legs tangled on the stick of Senators forward Jean-Gabriel Pageau. And, yeah, you saw Bishop reaching for somewhere around the knee region of that leg. So hopefully it's nothing major. They're saying 2 games, so it doesn't look like to be major. Dallas is going to need Bishop for the playoffs for sure. All right, Montreal's Max Pacioretty could miss the rest of the regular season because of a knee injury. He was injured in a 6-3 win against the Islanders on Friday and is expected to be out 4 to 6 weeks. If he returns 4 weeks from Monday, he could play in Montreal's final 3 regular season games. Pacioretty has 37 points in 64 games this season. The Montreal captain has 448 points in 626 games, including 30 goals in each of the past 4 seasons. And as far as my opinion on this is, why bother bringing him back?
Well, yeah, because Montreal's not going to make the playoffs.
No.
I agree with you.
There's not much for them to play for.
Yeah.
You might as well just shut him down, let him sit out the rest of the season, and start working towards next season.
Right.
All right. Jay Bouwmeester will miss the remainder of the season for the St. Louis Blues because of an injury to his left hip. The defenseman will have surgery and is expected to need 4 to 6 months to recover. Bouwmeester missed 9 games after he was injured his hip on December 10th, but he returned to play after receiving an injection rather than opting for surgery at the time, and then he re-injured that knee in the most recent game, so they decided to shut him down. So the injuries that we were talking about to St. Louis players, that's not going to help them retain a playoff spot.
Agreed.
All right.
I think St. Louis, we can say St. Louis is a team falling out of the ranks. They're probably not going to make the playoffs.
I would say that, yeah. They're going to have to really turn things around in a hurry.
Yep.
If they're going to make it. All right, Luke Kunin of the Minnesota Wild is going to miss the remainder of the season because of a torn ACL in his left knee. The 20-year-old forward was injured during a 4-1 loss against the Red Wings on Sunday. He's a first-round draft pick in the 2016 NHL draft, so he's a highly touted prospect for them. But he only has 4 points in 19 games this season, so he's played a minor role in Minnesota's game this season. But looks like he'll be back. And it's crazy. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a torn ACL meant a 1-year absence from the game. Right. Now they're expecting he'll be back in time for the start of the season.
Yep.
They're saying 7 months. He used to be minimum 12.
Yep.
For an ACL. All right, Vancouver Canucks forward Sven Barchi has a separated shoulder and is likely to miss the rest of the season. He was injured when he collided with Nashville Predators defenseman Alexei Yemelin in the second period of a 4-3 overtime loss at Rogers Arena on Friday. The 25-year-old forward has 29 points in 53 games this year. He missed 11 games with a broken jaw and was hit by a clearing attempt from Calgary Flames defenseman Mark Giordano. So another Vancouver injury, which, oh well, they're out anyway.
I agree.
All right. Did you have any other injuries you wanted to add in?
No.
Okay.
None to report on, Wayne.
All right. Let's talk about some of the other stories I came across this week. Let's talk Seattle. Article I found, it says, Seattle fans have spoken loud and clear as to whether they want NHL hockey in their city. Seattle, which began a season ticket drive on Thursday in its effort to become an NHL expansion team, received 10,000 deposits in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And about 25,000 in total. Actually, I think that number has climbed to over 30,000 now. The ownership group applied to the NHL for an expansion team on February 13. If Seattle is awarded, I guess it's not a matter of if, it's when. When Seattle is awarded an NHL team, its owners are expected to announce final ticket prices in 2019. The group, led by Jerry Bruckheimer, a Hollywood producer, David Bonderman, a private equity CEO, and Tim Lewicki, CEO of Oakview Group, was authorized December 7th to file an application for expansion by the NHL Board of Governors. It paid a $10 million application fee. Shell-shocked is the best way to put it, Lewicki told TSN about the amount of the deposits. We sold 10,000 season tickets in 12 minutes, and we're just short of 25,000, so I guess the fans have spoken. The fans in Seattle have made it a resounding vote in which they are ready for the National Hockey League, and they're counting on us to bring the NHL here. So things seem to be moving along there in Seattle.
Yeah, they're moving quickly. I don't know if they're moving as quickly as they did in Las Vegas.
I think it's moving faster.
You think so?
It took Vegas longer to sell that many tickets. 12 minutes. 12 minutes is really fast to sell 10,000.
I don't know the first 10,000 seats. I really don't.
Yeah.
But Vegas wound up selling. I think they sold out. All their season ticket holders.
Well, 30,000 sold. 30,000. Well, these aren't actually tickets bought. These are deposits made on season tickets. So the deposits are refundable. So, but selling 30,000 is clearly more than what that arena is going to be able to hold. I can't imagine that arena, when they're done with the, because they're still going through the process of renovating that arena, getting it ready. And the arena won't even be ready until the 2021 season. So we're talking, 3 years from now, 3 seasons from now.
Right.
So I know they need to pump the brakes here a little bit in Seattle, but they're definitely getting excited about getting a team there. But to sell 30,000 deposits on season tickets. Now, this could be partial season tickets. They could turn out to be partial season tickets too. So they could potentially sell 30,000 season ticket packages if you have, a bunch of 12-game packages and 21-game packages and so on and so on. I guess they could essentially end up with 30,000 customers. But yeah, looks like the fans have spoken loud and clear anyway. That's the bottom line of that story.
That's right.
So stay tuned to that. We'll have more as it comes out. They announced the 2019 draft site this week. It is going to be held at Rogers Arena in Vancouver. That is going to happen in June of 2019, and it will help the Canucks launch their 50th season celebration in the NHL at the start of that season. So it'll include other special events to commemorate the historic milestone. And they're also holding host to the 2019 World Junior Championship, where some of the top draft-eligible prospects will get a chance to play in Rogers Arena, where they will hope to hear their name called on stage later that year. The 2019 NHL Draft will be held over 2 days, Friday, June 21, and Saturday, June 22 of 2019. So, and of course, that brings in players, executives, scouts, coaches, everybody all into that city. I wish I would have been here for the year that Carolina's had a draft before.
Right.
They've hosted one.
Yep.
And I wish I was. I don't think I was down here yet when they had that. I would have loved to gone to that. I would definitely have taken the weekend off to go attend that. And who knows, if they do one in Washington or another nearby city, maybe Nashville, maybe we can take some time off to go.
I agree.
All right. The Edmonton Oilers and the New Jersey Devils will play their 2018-19 season opening game at Scandinavium in Gothenburg, Sweden on October 6th as part of the 2018 NHL Global Series. There's a big article. I've got a link in the show notes to that. And basically the way it's working is obviously the Global Series. Each of those teams is going to play one of the teams in the Swedish League as an exhibition. And then they're going to play each other, I think, in a preseason game. And then they'll have that one game on October 6th that actually counts in the standings. So all of the details and the schedules of all of that is available by just simply clicking the link in the show notes. If you're a fan of either of those teams, Vancouver or Edmonton, you'll want to not Vancouver, Edmonton or New Jersey. You'll want to click that link and get the details, especially if you live over there. All right, that's it for interesting stories that I've come across. Honors and milestones is next. We have a few of those. We have, first of all, our Players of the Month and Players of the Week to get through. So Minnesota Wild center Eric Stahl, Pittsburgh Penguins center Evgeny Malkin, and Vegas Golden Knights right wing Riley Smith were named the NHL's 3 stars for the month of February. And Tampa Bay Lightning center Yanni Gourde, who led all rookies with 16 points in 14 games, was named the NHL's Rookie of the Month for February. Right. He edged New York Islanders center Matthew Barzal, Winnipeg Jets left wing Kyle Connor, New Jersey Devils center Nico Hischier, and Vancouver Canucks right wing Brock Besser for the honor. And Minnesota Wild center Eric Stahl, Nashville Predators goaltender Pekka Rinne, and Anaheim Ducks center Ryan Getzlaf were named NHL's 3 stars of the week ending February 25th. And Colorado Avalanche center Nathan McKinnon, Winnipeg Jets right wing Patrick Laine, and Florida Panthers center Alexander Barkov were named NHL's 3 stars for the week ending March 4th. So we haven't done a podcast in a while, so we had 2 of those to announce.
Yep. And I tell you, Nathan McKinnon is having a great year.
He sure is. He's carrying that team on his back.
Absolutely.
And Barkov, he's been a big part of the Florida resurgence.
Yep. Without a question.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about David Poile, because he set an NHL record this past week. He set the record for wins by an NHL general manager when Nashville Predators defeated the Edmonton Oilers 4-2 on Thursday. Poile, who's been Predators GM since their inaugural season back in 98-99, got his 1,320th win, passing Glenn Sather for the most in NHL history. He tied Sather's record of 1,319 wins when Predators defeated the Winnipeg Jets 6-5 on Tuesday. So kudos to him for getting that record.
Absolutely. You have to be a general manager for a long time to get that record.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, just for some perspective on how long he's been coaching. The first trade he ever made included Rod Langway. Yeah, that was the trade that brought Rod Langway from Montreal to Washington. and it pretty much turned that franchise around. Because Poyle, before he was GM of the Predators, was the GM for Washington for a number of years. So he's GM 2 different teams. He has 24 playoff berths in 33 seasons. So this is his 34th season as a GM.
Yep.
He has made 295 trades, 106 with the Capitals, 189 with the Predators. He's drafted 335 players in 34 different drafts. And just a couple of the players that he's gotten late in draft picks. He drafted Peter Bondra with the 156th pick the year he was drafted. And he drafted Pekka Rinne, 258th overall.
Yeah.
The year Rinne was drafted.
Amazing.
And he has had 417 different players play for him over the years. So interesting numbers there, to say the least. So yeah, and going back to that trade, his first trade that he ever made as a GM came 10 days after he was hired by the Capitals on August 30th, 1982. It instantly transformed the Capitals from a struggling team trying to gain a foothold in Washington to one that qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs for 14 consecutive seasons. In 1982, Poyle was 32 years old and the league's youngest GM when he acquired Rod Langway, fellow defenseman Brian Engblom, and forwards Doug Jarvis and Craig Laughlin from the Montreal Canadiens for defenseman Rick Green and forward Ryan Walter.
That's going way back, man. God.
Boy, that seems to be a bit of a steal, don't you think?
Really something.
So yeah, and apparently, as the story goes, Langway was thrilled to come to Washington because in Montreal he was stuck behind a whole plethora of stars that they had back in those days. And they had Guy Lafleur, they had Larry Robinson, Bob Gainey, Guy Lapointe, Serge Savard. But moving to the Capitals, he was the main guy, and he earned the nickname Secretary of Defense. He won the Norris Trophy in 82-83 and 83-84. Played in the All-Star Game 4 times, and ended up playing 11 seasons for the Capitals.
Yeah, Rod Langway was a great player.
And then, of course, his number 5 ended up being retired by the Capitals. And, of course, he's in the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, great player. So, yeah, I think that's all I had on David Poyle. But, yeah, kudos to him for getting that record. And I was going to include Alex Ovechkin, but we're going to include that the next time around because he hasn't quite crossed the barrier yet. He is creeping up on 600 goals as a career.
He's coming up later.
Yep. So we'll talk about him probably next week once he crosses that threshold. All right. That leaves us with power rankings for this week. And is it my turn?
It is your turn.
It's my turn. Okay.
It is your turn.
I did one just in case. I was thinking it was my turn, but I wasn't entirely sure. All right. Let's start with, this is obviously the HockeyNuts.com official power ranking for the week. And at number 16, I've got Florida. At number 15, I've got Colorado. 14, I've got LA. 13 is Anaheim. 12 is San Jose. 11 is Philly. 10 is Dallas. 9 is Pittsburgh. 8 is Minnesota. 7 is Toronto. 6 is Washington. 5 is Winnipeg. Number 4, I've got Vegas. They've dropped off a little bit.
Yeah.
Number 3, I've got Boston. Number 2, I've got Tampa Bay. And number 1, I've got Nashville. And the reason I put Nashville is they have won, I think it's 8 games in a row.
Yep. Playing very well.
And they're basically pulling away. Right now, it's Nashville and Tampa Bay are pulling away from their respective conference opponents.
Right.
They're going essentially, Nashville's pulling away in the West. Tampa Bay is pulling away in the East. And I guess a lot can be attributed to the trades that they made. Both teams picked up some key players either right before or right at the trade deadline. So
right.
Both teams are looking very strong. And right now, if I had to pick 2 teams to make the Stanley Cup final, it would be those 2. All right, so let's look ahead. We're at the point where we look ahead to the upcoming week, or in this case, the upcoming probably 10 days, because it'll be roughly 10 days before we do another podcast.
That's right. Yeah. It's going to be next week, mid to late week.
Yep. All right, starting with Carolina. They are playing tonight at Minnesota, so it's probably not a 7 o'clock game, but probably a 8:30, 9 o'clock game, something like that. I think Minnesota's 1 hour, 2 hours behind us?
They are 1 hour behind us.
1 hour behind us, yeah. And then they go to Chicago on the 8th, and then they're at the Rangers on the 12th.
All right.
And then they are at home against Boston on the 13th, a game that I'm going to, for sure. I've taken the day off to make sure, or at least the evening off. I think I'm getting out of work at 2 that day.
Oh,
and then Philadelphia on the 17th at home. And just as a note, they've got 15 games in March, so a very busy month for Carolina. So those are some winnable games there. Minnesota, I'm not so sure. That's going to be a tough one for them. But Chicago is not playing well. They should be beatable. The Rangers, although they've been playing better lately, Carolina should beat them, but the way they've been playing lately, it's not going to be easy. Boston's not going to be an easy one, but, well, actually, this is kind of a tough week for Carolina. And then Philadelphia's playing very well, so. But if Carolina's going to make the playoffs, they've got to get some points out of these teams.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is really make or break week.
Yep.
If Carolina, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 6 games or 5 games?
5 games.
They got to go 3-2.
Yep.
They really have to get 6, at a minimum of 6 points.
3-2, and probably steal a point out of one of those 2 losses.
Yep.
Get 7 points out of 9.
Yep.
Or 10.
7 points out of 10.
Yep.
They really have to get that many points.
Yep.
So.
All right. Rangers also have a 5-game week.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. We play 5 games. We play against Winnipeg tonight, which as soon as this podcast is over, I'm hurrying in to watch that game. A 7 o'clock game at the Garden. And there's not many games left at the Garden. There's only a handful left.
No, they're on the road a lot.
The Tampa Bay Lightning, we play them on Thursday night in Tampa Bay. Will be an interesting game, that one. I all those New York Rangers players on the Tampa Bay Lightning. It is truly amazing. It's as if half the team got traded to them over the years. But that should be an interesting game on the 8th. The first game where you'll have Ryan McDonough going up against his former teammates, as well as JT Miller. So we'll see what happens. Then on the 10th in Florida. Now, excuse me, Wayne. I real quickly, we might get blown away. We might get blown out in that game. But I will say this: there will be a lot of Rangers fans in Florida at that game. There always are.
Oh yeah.
That is really our second home, I would say. There are a huge number of Rangers fans, a huge following in Greater Miami. So if the Rangers hang tight, get a goal, take the lead in the game or something,
get the fans on their side,
get the fans going.
Yep.
You never know. That's a team that Florida, and I've heard it said by the Florida announcers, they don't like the Rangers coming to town because they draw a lot of fans to the game. And watch us lose 6-1.
Yep.
But if we come in there and keep it competitive, keep it tight, or take an early lead in the game and can hold on with Henrik and net, you never know. That may come out to be a win. Going on from there, the Carolina Hurricanes, and there's no shortage of Rangers fans going to those games either.
Nope.
So the same thing with Carolina on the 12th next week. That's in the Garden. That game is in the Garden. I was thinking that was in Raleigh. It's not. It's in the Garden. So that'll be a very good game for the Madison Square Garden crowd. And then on the 14th, I believe that's the NBC game of the week or Thursday night game of the week. They play the Pittsburgh Penguins at the Garden.
It's the rivalry game Wednesday night. Yep.
It is. It's
Yep.
the Wednesday night rivalry game. Really, they've got no pressure on them. They really don't have any pressure on them. I would think that they are, they're underdogs in that game. So what? They don't. I don't think there's any monkey on their back to win that game. So that puts the onus on Pittsburgh.
Yep.
In that game.
Yeah, and a lot of times having no pressure on you like that is very freeing for the players, and it allows them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And sometimes it can make a team start winning again.
Yeah.
Having no pressure, and I think that's part of. Now, granted, the Western Canada road trip, those teams out there haven't been playing particularly well, so those were points that were definitely available. Those teams out there in Western Canada have been giving up points to the East all season long. But at the same time, wins are wins. So,
right.
So the Rangers are making things interesting in the East for sure. Boston actually has a busier week than everybody else. They've got 6 games this week coming up. They've got Detroit tonight. And that's at home. They've got Philadelphia on the 8th at home. They've got Chicago at home on the 10th. Then they turn around and go on the 11th the next night and go play Chicago. So a true home and home. In the only 2 games that they play Chicago all year, they're doing it back to back. And then they come here to Carolina on the 13th. And then they go down to Florida on the 15th to play them. In the first of 4 games, they've yet to play Florida this season. So they still got to play 4 games against Florida between now and the end of the year.
Wow.
And the Bruins in total have 16 games in March and quite a few more in April. So because Boston and Florida have played the fewest number of games in the NHL, so they've got to make up all those games. So the Bruins have a very busy month ahead of them this month. And then, so not only do the Bruins have to play 4 games against Florida between now and the end of the year, who are playing lights out hockey, Boston plays 3 more times against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's really something.
So that's a tough schedule. That's a tough schedule to finish things up. And Bruins have more road games than home games. So, but fortunately, Bruins have been playing very well on the road all season long, so it's not as big of a concern for me anyway. All right, that leads us to our minor league hockey minute. And I just wanted to wrap up, because we hadn't done it since we last recorded the Olympics. Of course, we know that USA won the women's gold. We know that Russia ended up winning the men's gold. And was it Canada that took the bronze?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, Canada.
Not certain of that. I think they did.
Canada took the bronze. So, and Germany took the silver. I was rooting hard for Germany to win that game because I didn't want to see the Russians win it. But after Russia lost that first game in the whole tournament, they steamrolled through everybody, and they basically proved that once again Russia's got the best hockey outside the NHL.
Yeah, they really do.
Because
when they showed their team, when they released the team, I said they're the odds-on favorite to win it.
Yeah.
They're really
well, and the bottom line is, and of course, the last time Russia won the gold was the last Olympics that didn't use NHL players. So basically, the bottom line is the NHL gobbles up so many of the Americans, Canadians, Swedes, Finns, and Slovaks and the Czech Republic players. The NHL swallows up so many of the top players from those countries. And yes, they swallow up a lot of top players from Russia, but there's a lot of players that choose to stay in Russia. They don't want to come over here, even though they're NHL caliber players. There's a lot of players in Russia that, for whatever reason, choose to stay over there. And it's because of that is why they ended up having the strongest team in the Olympics and pretty much won that thing going away.
Right.
But
agreed.
But the Germans had the game on their stick late in the game. I watched that game. They had a shot at winning it, and they just couldn't hang on. Russia had to pull their goalie, I think, if I remember right. It's been so long now. They had to pull their goalie, and they ended up tying the game by pulling their goalie. So, and the other thing, minor league minute thing that I wanted to talk about is an update on the KHL. And I don't know if you noticed, but they are in their playoffs now.
They are. First round of the playoffs have started there,
Yep.
and I have followed that a little bit.
First round of the playoffs have started. They're already 2 or 3 games in, depending on the series. And the playoffs are pretty much going as expected at this point. SKA and CSKA are both off to a 2-0 lead in their series. Jokerit's up 2-1 over Sochi, and Lokomotiv is up 3-0 against Torpedo. And then in the East, AK Bars is up 2-0 over Amur. Salavat Yulev and Avangard are tied at 1. Automobilist and Metallurg Magnitogorsk is also tied at 1 apiece. And Traktor has a 2-0 lead over Neftekmik. So just a quick update from the KHL. And, I can speak for me, definitely. I don't think anyone's going to stop CSKA or SKA this year. Those two teams are loaded.
They're going to get down to the West Finals with those two teams.
Yep.
And then it'll be interesting to see who they play.
It'll be like last year, where the West Finals is what's going to determine the Gagarin Cup winner. Yep. The winner of the Western Conference Final is going to roll over the Eastern champion and probably win it. I think it was a sweep last year, wasn't it? Or was it 5?
I can't remember. I think Magnitogorsk lost in 5 to SKA.
Yep.
Or was it? Yeah, I think it was Magnitogorsk lost in 5. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, SKA finished the season with only, 45 and 11, something like that.
Yeah, they played awfully well.
Yeah.
Of course, there's only 70 games in a Russian hockey season.
Well, 56, actually, this year.
I wonder why it was shortened.
The Olympics, probably.
Yeah.
You probably just shortened it. Rather than just postpone the season and pick it up after because they want to make sure that they get their season done before the World Championships.
Right.
In April. Because Russia wants to send a good team to the World Championships, too.
Right.
So I think they actually shortened their season this year due to the Olympics. So, 56 games. That's why I was surprised when I saw that they're actually in their playoffs. 56-game regular season. SKA won the West with a 40-win, 3 overtime win, 4 shootout wins. So that's 47 wins total, with 5 regulation losses and 4 overtime losses, overtime or shootout losses. So, 47, 5, and 5. I guess that's the definition of domination. If you ask me.
I had a great year. That's for sure.
Yep. So everyone's expecting them to roll through. We'll pick up. We'll check in from time to time on that league. All right. What was your story?
Mine is in regards, Wayne, and it's a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to get it going quickly here. Mine is in regards to the NHL trade deadline and how it reshapes the AHL landscape. If you think about it, Wayne, the focus of player development in the AHL has increased so much over the years that the trade deadline in the NHL is basically reshaping how the AHL stacks up with their teams and their playoff races.
Yep.
More than ever before. And this article kind of goes over that. I got this off the AHL website. Affiliates for Sabres, Coyotes, among those benefiting from additions. The impact of the 2018 NHL trade deadline was felt in the AHL as well. Several AHL prospects were on the move, either as part of the trades to benefit NHL teams or deals to strengthen an AHL affiliate for a run in the Calder Cup playoffs. Here is a look at several NHL organizations that were active before the deadline passed on Monday. Tucson, the Roadrunners are the Arizona Coyotes affiliate. NHL success often starts at the AHL level. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Washington Capitals are among the NHL teams that have built some of the most productive farm systems in hockey and blended development with a winning culture in the AHL. For us to have success and grow, we need a good American League team, and that's usually the first step, GM John Chayka told the Coyotes website. Tucson has 3 rookies who were first-round selections in the 2015 NHL draft, and getting AHL playoff experience for them spurred the Coyotes to act Monday. Forwards Dylan Strome, number 3, Lawson Krause, number 11 by the Florida Panthers, and Nick Merkley, number 30, make up that 2015 draft crop. They are joined by other talented prospects who have a chance for a long playoff run. Tucson leads the Pacific Division with .637 points percentage, 6th best in the AHL. To give these prospects a boost, Tucson acquired veteran forward Carter Kemper, who has 42 points, 13 goals, and 29 assists from Cleveland, the Columbus Blue Jackets affiliate, in an AHL trade. The Coyotes also brought in Dylan Trevor Murphy and forward Pierre-Cedric Lebrun from Milwaukee in a trade with the Nashville Predators for forward Tyler Gaudette and defenseman John Ramage. Kemper is an established AHL center who will bring depth to that position. He has reached the AHL postseason in 4 of the past 5 seasons, including a trip to the Calder Cup final in 2016 with Hershey, the Capitals affiliate. He had a team-leading 17 points, 6 goals, and 11 assists in the 29 playoff games for Hershey. Murphy, 22, is in his 3rd pro season and is a mobile defenseman with an offensive mindset. He had 26 points, 8 goals, and 18 assists in 48 games for Milwaukee. He joins a group of defensemen that includes rookie Kyle Capobianco and Kyle Wood. The Coyotes also gave Tucson another center with the assignment of Laurent Dauphin, and we've talked about him on this program, who has 15 points, 5 goals, and 10 assists in 16 AHL games since being acquired from the Chicago Blackhawks on January the 10th. Next team, Rochester, the Rochester Americans, who are the Buffalo Sabres affiliates. Much like Arizona, Buffalo has made building a strong AHL affiliate a priority as part of its rebuild, and I've noticed that. But Buffalo's they're putting it together, Wayne. I think you'd have to agree. For Daniel O'Regan is on his way to Rochester after the Sabres acquired him from the San Jose Sharks as part of the Evander Kane trade. O'Regan, 24, had 4 assists in 19 games for the Sharks and 25 points, 7 goals, and 18 assists in 31 AHL games. He won the Dudley Garrett Memorial Award as the top rookie in the AHL in 2016-17 when he had 58 points, 58 points, 23 goals, and 35 assists. After starting 26-8, 4, and 3, Rochester remains firmly in a North Division playoff spot, but has fallen into a slump in the past 6 weeks with 4 wins in its past 18 games. O'Regan's departure is the latest for the AHL roster in San Jose. Troy Grosnick and Alej Bastien Memorial Award, Alej Bastien Memorial Award as a top goaltender in the AHL last season, and forward Brandon Boeing were traded to the Predators on Monday. Each player has been assigned to Milwaukee, a team trying to remain in the Central Division race. Next, the Hartford Wolfpack, the New York Rangers, and the San Antonio Rampage, who are now the Colorado Avalanche affiliate. 2 young AHL defensemen got fresh starts Monday. The Rangers traded Hartford's Ryan Graves to the Avalanche for San Antonio's Chris Bigras, and that one showed up on the draft ticker on the 26th. Graves, 22, has 11 points, 4 goals, and 7 assists in 57 games, AHL games, in his 3rd pro season. However, defensemen John Gilmore and Nick Pionk had been recalled to the Rangers recently ahead of Graves. Graves was assigned to San Antonio, where he could be a big boost for a team trying to stay in playoff contention during a 12-month-long, 12-game road trip. Bigras, 23, had started the season with the Avalanche, but found himself back in San Antonio. He has 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists in 20 AHL games, and will join Hartford. Next, team that we watched nary 3 weeks ago, the Syracuse Crunch, who are the Tampa Bay Lightning's affiliate. Most notable for the Syracuse roster is it remained intact. Syracuse, loaded with high-end prospects, has 71 points, 4th most in the AHL. However, the multiplayer trade with the Rangers that brought defenseman Ryan McDonough and forward JT Miller to Tampa Bay did not cost the Lightning any of their Syracuse prospects. The Utica Comets, Vancouver Canucks franchise affiliate. It was an up-and-down day for Utica. Philip Holm, who is 3rd among the defensemen with 11 goals, was traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Holm, 20, was assigned to Chicago, a team that is 23-5-2, 5-2-1 since December 8th. However, the Canucks acquired forward Tyler Mott from the Blue Jackets in the Thomas Vanek trade. Mott, 22, will remain with the Canucks, but he is eligible for the AHL postseason. He had 11 points, 9 goals, and 2 assists in 17 AHL games for Cleveland. So a lot of wheeling and dealing going on in the AHL that really doesn't get talked about.
Yep.
But you see, those are the things that building teams are very active in during this time of year. And I just wanted to bring a little highlight to that in our minor league hockey minute.
Sure. Yeah, that's the other side. We talk about in the NHL side of things, all the big name players that change hands, but what doesn't get talked about much is those throw-in players that tend to change the AHL outlook. And of course, you know, all those guys like to win too, so they'll be all competing for a Calder Cup in their respective cities. All right, well, good. Let's move on then to our college hockey minute and talk briefly about a couple of weeks ago. Well, actually, let's talk about Maine a little bit. Last week, they played UNH in the first round of the Hockey East playoffs and swept them. There was 2 home games. Could have been 3. It was a best-of-3 series, but they ended up sweeping them in 2. So they are now 18, 14, and 4 overall. They're up to 24th in the pairwise, which is still not good enough to earn them an at-large bid should they lose. So they will have to win the Hockey East tournament in order to get into the NCAA tournament, which will be a pretty tall order because they play Providence College next in the next round of the Hockey East tournament, and number 9 is the ranking for Providence right now in the U.S. Hockey Online, College Hockey Online poll. So just talk about some of the games that happened, though, leading up to the tournament or the conference tournaments. These are the last games, upsets that happened in the last regular season weekend before the conference tournaments. You had number 18 Penn State defeated number 8 Minnesota twice. Miami defeated number 12 North Dakota 4-3 in overtime. Alabama Huntsville defeated number 15 Bowling Green 3-2. And then on Saturday night of that week, Michigan State beat Notre Dame 4-3. Notre Dame's a number 5 team. Michigan State is unranked. That was a huge upset there. Number 19, probably in one of the games of the week, because mostly because it involved 2 ranked teams. Number 19 Union defeated number 2 Cornell 4-3 on Saturday night, so that was a big upset there. And then UMass beat number 7 Providence 1-0 in a Hockey East matchup. And then finally, Michigan Tech is getting hot at the end of the season. They beat number 16 Northern Michigan 3-2. Now, on to this past weekend. If you've been paying attention to college hockey, you know that the conference tournaments are underway.
Right.
5 of the 6 college hockey conferences have all started their tournaments already. The opening rounds, basically, most of the highly ranked teams didn't play this past weekend because they all earned buys into the quarterfinal or even on the smaller conferences, the semifinal of their respective conferences. So what we saw this past weekend were some of the lower seeded teams basically playing their way to try to get into the quarterfinal of their college hockey conference. And of course, Maine was one of those. We talked about that. They beat UNH. But the way it shakes out anyway is I've actually created a sheet that has all the tournament brackets for college hockey. I just finished shooting before we got on this podcast. I just finished shooting a video for the YouTube channel that is roughly 30 minutes or so, just talking college hockey. The whole video, that's all I'm doing. But basically, the way it shakes out is the city of Boston is going to be the place to be if you want to see college hockey in the Hockey East, because all three of the four city schools, Boston College, BU, and not Harvard. Harvard's in the ECAC. BC, BU, and Northeastern are all hosting other teams at their rink in the quarterfinals of the Hockey East tournament. And then the fourth site for the quarterfinals is Providence, where Maine goes down and plays them.
Wayne, that they could beat Providence?
I don't know if they can beat them twice. I know they can beat them once, but Providence has won every game against them so far this year. They haven't. In fact, Maine hasn't beat Providence in a few seasons now. But in the Hockey East, you've got BC and Merrimack, BU and Connecticut, Maine and Providence, UMass Amherst, and Northeastern. Those are your final 8. In the ECAC, your final 8 are Cornell, Quinnipiac, Harvard, Dartmouth, Colgate, Clarkson, Princeton, Union. And in Atlantic hockey, you've got Mercyhurst, Sacred Heart, Army, Air Force. That should be a fun series. Robert Morris and Holy Cross, American International, and Canisius. In the Big Ten is down to their final 4 already, because it is only a 7-team conference. So they've already had their quarterfinal round. Number 1, Notre Dame is playing Penn State. And then this one's very intriguing, and I hope it's on TV. Number 11, Michigan plays at number 6, Ohio State. So the big rivalry, Michigan-Ohio State, that takes place in football is taking to the ice this weekend in a...
The Buckeyes are very good. They're an excellent team.
Yep, and it's a single game. The semifinal in this tournament is a single game elimination. So it won't be a series. It's one game, and I believe the game is on the 10th. So if you're near a TV, you probably want to look that one up. All right, and in the NCHC conference, you have St. Cloud State, Miami, Ohio, North Dakota, and Nebraska, Western Michigan and Minnesota Duluth, and Colorado College and Denver, all playing in quarterfinal series. And in the WCHA, they're down to their final 4 already. Minnesota State is taking on Michigan Tech, and Bowling Green is taking on Northern Michigan in that one. So that is all of the college hockey matchups for this weekend, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to be on TV because they are the tournaments. And as you know, Steve, the 6 conference champions earn automatic bids into the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Leaving 10 spots to go to at-large, and that is where those 10 at-large bids, that's where the pairwise rankings come into play. And right now, and we'll just talk top 16 in the pairwise. These are the teams that are basically under consideration for at-large bids. At 16, you've got Bowling Green, 15 North Dakota, 14 Omaha, 13 Minnesota, 12 is Providence, 11 is Penn State, 10 is Northeastern, 9 is Minnesota Duluth, 7 number 7, there's a tie, so Michigan and Clarkson are tied at 7th. We have 2 teams tied at 5th, Minnesota State and Denver. Number 4 is Ohio State. 2 teams tied at 2, Notre Dame and Cornell. And the number 1 team this week is St. Cloud State. So if I didn't mention your team in those pairwise, your team is on the outside looking in and will have to win your conference tournament in order to get into the NCAA tournament. That's pretty much the bottom line there. So that is it for a quick college hockey update. I was going to get into bracketology this week, but on the interest of time, we're going to skip that this week. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. So now we're at our picks of the week. Maybe I'll do a video, a YouTube video on bracketology.
I would like to hear it on the podcast too, Wayne. Let me just put it like that. You're a college hockey aficionado, so take that into consideration.
Well, bracketology is basically just trying to guess the bracket. So,
yeah.
And there's a couple of blogs that I read that do a pretty good job at doing such. So, but we'll wait for one more week to pass. That way, we'll get down to at least the championship or the final games of the respective conferences.
Yeah.
And we'll have a more clear picture of how the brackets will look anyway in a week. All right, and my pick of the week was going to be, because we were going to record prior to the last weekend, was the second of 2 Try Hockey for Free days. That was this past Saturday. So if you didn't get in on that action, you missed out. But good news is USA Hockey has 2 of these a year, usually one in the fall, one in the spring. The springtime one just happened this past week. It was all part of Hockey Day in America, which was the same day as the outdoor game in D.C. So there was that. But I did come up with another one, and it was a story that I saw today on the hockey on the NHL.com.
I saw this story,
and it's concerning the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School team. Of course, Shane Gostisbehere a couple of nights ago went in and talked to the hockey team from this high school. And of course, if you're not aware of this high school, obviously you haven't been watching the news. This is the high school that was the incident with the shooting a couple of weeks ago, where 17 people got killed in this mass shooting. And anyway, mere 11 days after the mass shooting at the school in Parkland, Florida, the high school hockey team, or the hockey team for this school, played in Florida's state championship game, and they ended up winning it. And of course, the Florida Panthers have been following and have been supporting, because many of the players live in Parkland, Florida. I guess it's a rather upscale neighborhood in that part of Florida. And many of the players live there. Many of the players have kids that go to school, not so much at that high school because, they would be older players, obviously, but at the younger age, the elementary schools in the area. So it hit home for the Florida Panthers in a lot of ways. Well, they invited the team to have a practice at BB&T Center, which is the home rink where the Florida Panthers play. And at the end of practice, they brought out the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And, of course, after winning the state championship, they bring out the Stanley Cup, and they actually had the Stanley Cup come out at the end of their practice, allowing the players to take pictures with it. But what got me, or what was an incredible surprise for these players, was the fact that they actually did something that they never, ever, ever do with people that aren't involved with the NHL. They actually allowed these players to hoist the cup over their head. Wow. And there's video. There's a link in the show notes on the article that actually links to the article on NHL.com, where it actually shows players of the various players actually lifting the cup over their head, like they had just won the cup. And it's incredibly rare to see that. Because the legend with the Stanley Cup is you are supposed to earn the right to do that. That's one of the no-nos with the Stanley Cup. You can touch it, you can kiss it, as long as it's sitting on a table, you can put your hands on it, as you and I did when we had our chance to take our picture with it. You can take a picture with it, so on and so on. One of the keepers of the cup can hold it for you, like if you can't, like in the case of that small child that we had, where we took a picture of one of the other fans that were there when we had our picture taken with it. He had a small baby, and the keeper of the cup actually picked up the cup, put it on the ground, and they put the baby inside the cup. They allowed that. But what they do not ever, ever, ever allow is for someone who has not won the cup to actually hold it and lift it over their head. That is a privilege that you earn. through winning it as a member of a NHL team. Well, they broke that rule in this case for these high school kids, and they allowed them to do it, which I thought was amazing.
Right.
I thought it was a very special moment for these kids. Hardly any of these kids will probably ever get a chance to play professionally, never mind playing for an NHL team, and give them the chance of a lifetime to be able to hoist the cup like that on their own I thought was a nice gesture by the league and the Florida Panthers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very inspiring.
Yep. So that was my story.
That was good, Wayne.
Yep.
You should have went last. It's better than mine.
Oh, well.
But mine, as I said earlier, we talked about Alex Ovechkin. My pick of the week is the grade 8 Alex Ovechkin, as highlighted in an article on NHL.com earlier. It was either Sunday or Monday of this week, regarding his recent, elevation in his game. Has his sights set on another 50-goal season. The article is entitled, Ovechkin has sights set on another 50-goal season. Capitals forward, 2 away from 600 goals in the NHL, needs 10 to reach the milestone for the 8th time. No sooner had Alex Ovechkin seized his league-leading 40th goal Saturday than he had his sights set on 50. 40 is nice, but 50 is better, the Washington Capitals captain said after he reached 40 for the 9th time in his NHL career in a 5-2 win against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 2018 Coors Light NHL Stadium Series at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland. Ovechkin's chase for the 600 NHL goals is the more immediate milestone in his path, heading into a 3-game California trip, which begins against the Anaheim Ducks on Tuesday, which is tonight. The Capitals, 37-21-7, are 1 point ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins and 2 ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers for the first place in the Metro Division. He's 2 goals away from becoming the 20th player in NHL history to reach 600, and if he does it in his next 13 games, he would be the 4th to take fewer than 1,000 games, joining Wayne Gretzky at 718, Mario Lemieux at 719, and Brett Hull at 900, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. And I do not know how many games Alexander Ovechkin has played, but it's obviously, I guess from what they're saying, he's played 987.
Yep.
I think he's a guy who focuses on certain goals, and in his area of scoring goals, that 50 mark is always big, Capitals coach Barry Trotz said. The 600 will be something he'll have forever, but I think he'll put a lot of pride in it if he can get 50 this year. He put a lot of pride in that. And, Wayne, to digress from this article for 1 second, basically Barry Trotz, more so than anybody else, Barry Trotz is a huge fan of Alexander Ovechkin. And when he took over as coach of the Capitals, he basically, it's like me or you being a huge hockey fan of a player, finally reaching the helm of a team where he can put the guy out on the ice, go get your records, go do this,
yep.
And that's what you have there in Washington.
Yep.
Ovechkin scored 50 or more goals 7 times in his first 12 NHL seasons. Only Gretzky and Mike Bossy have done it more, 9 each. Since 2013-14, this is something here. Since 2013-14, Ovechkin is the only player in the league to score 50 in a season, and he's done it 3 times. In 13-14, he had 51. In 14-15, he had 53. And in 15-16, he had 50. But after he dropped to 33 goals last season, it appeared his days of scoring 50 might be over. That didn't stop Trotz from setting 50 as the objective for Ovechkin before the season began. Now that Ovechkin is within reach of the number again, he appears driven to get it. As Ovechkin has said, he has to get 600 before he gets 50. Trotz said he tried to help Ovechkin get to 600 on Saturday after he scored number 598 at 6:19 of the first period. I kept putting him on the ice on offensive draws to see if he could get it, Trotz said. I was talking to him on the ice Monday, and he had a couple opportunities in the second that he felt he could have got it. And if he would have got it, I'm pretty sure he would have got that third one. He would have found a way to do it.
Yep.
But he's going to get that mark, hopefully sooner than later. And Ovechkin has been hot of late with 6 goals in his past 7 games and 8 in his past 11. So as things heat up for the playoffs, and they're pretty much in full swing right now, so is Alexander Ovechkin for the Washington Capitals.
Yep. Here's the question. Can he catch Gretzky?
Why?
I don't think he can.
He's got to score 300 goals to do it.
Well, there's a couple things that could get in the way with that. Number one is his age. And number two is 4 years from now, the Olympics play in China. And, you know, Ovechkin was pretty outspoken that he wants to play for Team Russia in Olympics before he gets done playing. If the NHL players decide not to go, he could very well retire going into that season so that he can go play in the Olympics, much like what Brian Giunta and Chris Kelly did for their respective countries, whereas basically they haven't played in the NHL all season. They wanted to play in the Olympics. They went and played in the Olympics, and then they signed a contract after. Ovechkin could do that in 4 years if the NHL players don't go. I fully expect the NHL players will go in China because as much as China is trying to grow the game in China, I think they'll want their players there. But anyway, that's a separate issue for another podcast, another day. But even if Ovechkin were to play like 7 or 8 more years, I haven't done the math, but he'd probably have to average about 40 goals a season over the next 7 or 8 years just to catch Gretzky.
Right.
Now, I think he can catch Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe's at 801. That's 200 more goals. He plays 5 more years. For sure, he can catch Howe and be the number 2 all-time goal scorer. I don't think he can catch Gretzky.
Right. And how old is Alexander Ovechkin? He's like 30, 34?
30, yeah, early 30s. 32, 33, 34, somewhere around there.
Yep.
So, anyway, good story. All right, that's it.
That is it, Wayne.
We got some games to watch. It's now 7 o'clock Eastern. On the 7th is a big slate of games tonight, including the Rangers, the Bruins, the Hurricanes, who play at 8. A lot of hockey to go watch. So we're going to go ahead and end this podcast real quick, and then we'll pick it up in about our normal time, but it won't be this Thursday or Friday. Generally, it's Thursday or Friday that we've been recording. It'll be next Thursday or Friday, so a week from Thursday or Friday. So about 10 days from now, we'll pick it up again, and we'll have a lot to catch up on. Won't have any transactions to talk about because that's pretty much done, but we'll have playoff races for sure to talk about. So we'll go ahead and end it, and until next time, Steve, we'll catch you later.
Good talking to you, Wayne.
All
Have
right.
a good evening.
You too. All right. Man, we rolled through that.
We did.
Got done just in the nick of time. None of the games have actually started yet, so.
Yeah.
But they're about to.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to go in and watch one. So let it suffice to say that we may go back to Wilmington this weekend. I don't know, but I'll keep you posted. But we will. I'll be in touch. I think
Okay.
next Thursday